robots destroying jobs, our economy, and possibly the world. Is that what artificial intelligence will be doing? There's no denying the impact of the information technology revolution on our economy. From the time that personal computers started infiltrating the workplace, there have been impressive gains in productivity, but at the same time, there have been job replacements by these machines. Hi, I'm Kavitapwe, and in this edition of Economic Divide, we will debunk the myth that AI and robots will replace humans in the workplace and beyond. Or will they? Stay tuned. The robots are here.
It may, on the one hand, lead to remarkable progress and new opportunities.
Jobs paying $20 an hour or less are in danger.
Every state in this country right now is fighting over minimum wage.
Artificial intelligence, today's reality. Will robots replace humans in the workforce? Well, for anyone asking that question, then they are already behind the eight ball, because that has already happened. The question that should be asked is, which jobs and by how much? Well, based on the White House, robots are coming for jobs that pay $20 an hour or less. There's an 83% chance that automation will take a job with an hourly wage below $20 an hour, a 31% chance that automation will take a job with an hourly wage between $20 and $40 an hour, and just a 4% chance that it will take a job with an hourly wage above $40 an hour. It's the year 2016. The world has changed in more ways than anyone can ever imagine. Technology has advanced, especially artificial intelligence. Once the dream of tech-savvy people and computer engineers, it has slowly and painstakingly become a reality, replacing the human workforce with robots. One of the countries that has for decades looked into the possibility of having robots do what humans do is the United States. Major corporations like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft are already building robots in their labs. The robot technology that Amazon is developing is mainly comprised of drones and the related systems that are used for transporting goods to customers. Microsoft may be mostly known as a global software enterprise. It has now expanded its expertise into writing programs for robots. The company's bosses in fact believe that working on robots has as much growth potential as the early PC market once did.
So there are lots of places in the world that we just can't reach. Being able to reach them will have an incredible impact on humanity, society. It's just a matter of characterizing, where are these places you can't reach.
The robotics industry is exploding. To begin with, what are the pros and cons of using robots? And you can just look right here at me.
Robots save a lot of businesses a lot of money. And if you're a business owner, that's a great thing. If you are invested in that business, it's a great thing. But the impact on the economy for the rest of the people is different. And it's not just we hear the word economy and we think financial, because it is financial, but there's more to that little tiny word economy than just a dollar sign. The trickle down of what bad economies do in households and families and in communities is really hard.
There definitely are many pros to using robots. I think actually there's a moral imperative here in Australia, where I'm working. About hundreds of people used to die down the mines of Australia. But because of automation now, it's only a few dozen. And as we have more and more automation, that will get even better. Another good example is autonomous vehicles. 1,000 people will die on the roads of Australia in the next year. Over a million people around the world will be dying on the roads. once we get to autonomous vehicles, we won't be having those accidents. Most accidents, 95% of accidents, are caused by human error. And so those rates will plummet, and we'll look back and think, how did we put up to all of that carnage happening on our road? So I think there's a moral imperative. There's also a financial imperative. We're not going to get increased productivity to allow our children to live even as good quality as lives as we do, unless we actually do increase productivity, and automation and robotics in particular will be helping us with that.
What is Google actually doing on this front? It is indeed known as the world's most popular search engine. But prepare yourself for a surprise. Google is believed to be already in an advanced stage of building an army of humanoid and animaloid robots that it wants to use for a variety of services. Services that vary from handling heavy cargoes and delivering goods to people's doors, what is technically described as mobile manipulation, to conducting surgery operations, and even to carry out missions in combat zones.
I think that from an economic standpoint for a business, it makes great sense. They're going to save a lot of money. Their production is going to go up. I believe robots are like 30 cents an hour, to operate. 30 cents an hour, what business wouldn't want an employee that's 30 cents an hour? We're fighting about minimum wage in this country in every state.
It's certainly the case that humans have been replaced in some areas by robots. I mean, if you go into factories today, if you go into a car factory today, it's true. The robots are doing the painting, the robots are doing the welding, and they're doing that better than you and I can do that. I think what's interesting and what's particularly challenging about now is that it's not just those what we would call blue-collar jobs in factories that are being replaced, but it's also some of the white-collar jobs. You're finding that journalists and lawyers and accountants and other people now are starting to be replaced as well. So that's a very interesting change that's happening.
The concept of an army of robots that can be given instructions en masse may remind you of the movie I, Robot.
We look to robots for protection. Imagine the loss of all that we've gained.
And we know the risks of malfunctions that emerge in the same movie for human beings. Google says it has taken over 7 robotics companies in the past half a year and has begun hiring staff to develop its own line of robots. But it has not specified what line of products it wants to establish. As with any other concept, there are some pros and cons for robots. An understanding of this will help enable people to better determine when to use and when not to use robots. The advantages are, robots are cheaper than most human counterparts, and their costs are still decreasing. Their abilities are now extremely vast and growing. For example, they are significantly stronger and faster than people. Robots do not get tired and can work very long hours without service or maintenance. They can also be much more precise than people. Robots can be used to carry out dangerous and unwanted work. And the fact that they can be used in warfare simply eliminates putting more people at risk. But now, let's take a look at some key disadvantages. Robots are very good at doing perfectly defined jobs, but they typically are not able to handle the unexpected jobs as well as people do. They can never improve the results of their jobs outside of their predefined programming. Robots can be extremely dangerous. Whether robots are malfunctioning or designed for warfare, they can be very hazardous to people. Robots do not have emotions or conscience. As a result, this limits how robots can help and interact with people.
It's certainly true that the price of robots is coming down. It used to be that it would cost you several $100,000 to get a decent industrial robot, and now you're starting to see robots that cost $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, and that's the price of 1 or 2 years of wages, and so that means that they can find themselves into more and more places. The reason it's come down is, engineering reasons. We've improved the way we can engineer robots, but also computational reasons, that we've just got better computers, we've got better algorithms to control them, so they're becoming more easy to control.
I suppose if I had a big manufacturing type business or even a tech business and I could automate stuff, like my industry, I come from broadcast media, and there's a lot of automation in that too, and that puts regular people out of jobs. We have to continue to get creative to find ways to make money. Look at all of the college students that have degrees and no jobs, and all this debt from their college loans. What What is more automation? What is more robots? From the kind that walk, you know, that we see like the Atlas videos from, I think it's Biodynamics is the company, but we see that sort of stuff. But robots and robotics, this is a robot, you know, in its own way. These things all are things that can be automated. There's a kid, 19 years old, who created a very simple robot that files court filings for parking tickets. How many lawyers aren't getting that job? Now, I'm not necessarily sticking up for lawyers, you know, but I mean, the trickle-down economy is for the average person. That's not a good thing.
Taking a look at the industrial robot statistics proves how the use of robots is increasing exponentially. Well, in 2014, robot sales increased by 29% to above 220,000 units, by far the highest level ever recorded for 1 year. Sales of industrial robots to all industries increased compared to the year 2013. The automotive parts suppliers and the electrical electronics industry were the main drivers of the growth. And in terms of countries in the lead, Asia and Australia have consecutively beat their competitors in Europe and the US for at least the past 3 years, and projected to do so through 2018. But the biggest issue with using robots is the huge loss of jobs for people. Basically, robots have eradicated a wide range of middle-class jobs in several industries, such as car manufacturing. And in the US, the same fear has been reigning for a while now, and the low-wage jobs may be the first to disappear as a result of this.
The innovations that digitization and technology bring can address a lot of the main priorities.
It may, on the one hand, lead to remarkable progress and new opportunities as major developments are merged. Let's say big data with biosequencing can have consequences we're not even able to think about. Automation, for instance, will take away much of the need for cheap labor.
It's going to increase productivity very dramatically. And so if we use it wisely, it's a super good thing. It frees up labor, you know, just like we did in the agricultural sector. We can always free up labor to do things like help old people more, or handicap people more, or you know, even at some point reduce the amount that people need to work.
The prospects for the robots to replace humans in the job market may not be something everyone wishes to see materialize.
It's an interesting question whether this time more jobs will be destroyed than created. I suspect it may be the case that more jobs will be destroyed. So I don't think it's going to be as high as 50%, but even if we do see unemployment rates moving up to as high as perhaps 25%, that's going to be a profound shift on our society, and we do have to think about that.
If you take so many jobs away, and you know, maybe it's just a lessening of the hours. Okay, maybe you're working 3 or 4 days a week versus 5, 6, or 7, or 2 jobs or whatever, and because things are more efficient because of the technology. Yeah, you might have more time for fun things and hobbies and exercise and your family, but how are you going to afford it? Every state in this country right now is fighting over minimum wage. If we can't get minimum wage lifted to a livable wage, then how are people going to be able to live when the corporations making the technology for pennies, 30 cents or you know, an hour using robots with the technology that they're making, then are they going to pay people more to only work 3 or 4 days a week? I don't see that happening.
A professor of computer engineering at Rice University, Moshe Vardi, has predicted that computer intelligence is growing so quickly that most human jobs would be automated by the year 2045. He has specifically emphasized that we're facing the possibility of machines that may be better than humans at nearly everything. Scary thought, isn't it?
Well, I think the biggest trend is the acceleration of change. Just from a year ago, it's like all the building block pieces have come together towards artificial intelligence, robotics, drones, driverless cars. That was all like sort of science fiction hype just a year ago at CES, virtual reality, and this year it's all real. It's somewhat terrifying, but really exhilarating also.
It's certainly true that computers and machines, robots will be technically possible to do most things that we can do. I think there's a little bit of scaremongering here that just because they can do those things doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to do them. So we've seen numbers like 47% of the people, the jobs in the United States are at risk of automation within the next 20 or 30 years. That doesn't mean that 47% of jobs are going to disappear.
With AI, there are good things we could do with it. We can save lives by having much safer cars because the cars drive themselves and the cars will be much more reliable. The cars will talk to each other and say, get out of my way, I'm coming in your direction.
Let's have some more insights on this straight from the top leadership in Washington. The White House, in its annual economic report of the president that came out just recently, has emphasized that robots are coming for jobs that pay $20 an hour or less. The key question here is, what happens when a robot takes one of these low-wage jobs?
Some of those people, it's not going to be economically or technically possible to replace them. They may just be too expensive to replace. Some society may just not put up with it. I mean, today we could already replace pretty much an airline pilot. In fact, most of the time you're flying a plane, a computer is flying the plane. So we don't really need to have a person up front. But as a society, we feel much safer that there is a person up there just in case anything goes wrong.
I think a lot of jobs have been dumped for robots. For robots, robotics, all the automation that I was talking about. I think that there's always going to be, or I'd hope, that there's always going to be some jobs that to make all those things happen, to build and create. But I also believe that we're at this very fascinating and frightening time in the world right now with this kind of technology that we're seeing artificial intelligence really expand rapidly right now. And if we get to the point, which I do believe we're going to get to the point, that these robots can think and operate on their own, then they're going to build themselves eventually.
Traditionally, innovation leads to higher income, more consumption, and more jobs. But the question is whether the current pace of automation will, in the shorter term, increase inequality.
Artificial intelligence develops these capabilities that enables robots to predict the consequences of their actions and to predict, then to select actions that have no undesired consequences, that don't hurt anyone. No one gets hurt or nothing gets damaged. And developing this is extremely important for the future of AI, because if we don't have that, if computers and robots cannot do that, humans will never accept robots in our society.
The White House knows that higher levels of robot density within an industry lead to higher wages in that industry. But that could be because of the absence of lower skills. The White House has further emphasized that its findings demonstrate the need for training and education to help displaced workers find new jobs. On the most basic level, the appeal is obvious. Robots work for 30 cents an hour, 24/7, with no lunch breaks. Naturally, the question arises, are humans going to be dumped for robots, or has that not started already?
I think it's very interesting, challenging questions we face is that if we are going to see some, what people call technological unemployment, people being put out of their jobs by robots, how society needs to adjust. I don't think it's going to be as high as 50%. As I mentioned, there are a number of jobs where we won't choose for them to be replaced. And you also have to remember that many more jobs are also created. I mean, all technologies destroy jobs as well as create jobs.
If we keep going like this, and it's all about corporatism, if it's all about the almighty dollar for the few, then yeah, we're going to have a lot more things to worry about than a President Trump.
It's inevitable. Robots are becoming a bigger part of our lives as they become more advanced, which means some of us will soon be out of work. A 300-page report released by Merrill Lynch predicts 47% of jobs are at risk for replacement in the next 20 years, with positions in the manufacturing and services industries being the ones at the greatest risk. But the report also highlights that there's one important skill that robots could never really master: creative thinking.
With songs they have sung for 1,000 years.
My goal is to develop robots that could do work that is dull, dirty, and dangerous. And as far as posing a threat, I really don't think there's anything to worry about. These machines have a long way to go until they can rival human cognitive power.
AI can reduce traffic accidents, but it cannot completely eliminate them without human input. And it is essential that people and machines collaborate to create a truly safe and secure mobile societies.
We've learned from this program that the fourth industrial revolution is coming. The automation of the fourth industrial revolution is accelerating. By the year 2018, around 1.3 million industrial robots will be entering the service in factories around the world. In the high-revenue automotive sector, global investments in industrial robots increased by a record-breaking 43% within 1 year. But don't be fooled by the myth that robots can think, at least as of yet. I'm Kavatapwe, and I'll catch you next week.